Today it is time for you to have the best settings for Call of Duty Warzone because Rebirth Island is back. And with that being said, let's hop right into the controller settings. This is just going to be a run through of the controller settings that I use and also some of the recommendations that might not be exactly what I use that you can obviously try out as well. So to start off with the controller settings, it's pretty simple. I play on the button layout tactical and I do not play flipped. So that means I can drop shot with my right stick if I click it in. And personally, I think drop shotting is one of the most effective ways to kill enemies in this game. And I think it's the easiest way to kind of control your aim while also dropping. So I think drop shotting is really important. Though I play on tactical, personally, I just like it a lot, but that's all preference of what you really like yourself. And then if you keep going down here, we're going to talk about dead zones really quick, just because this is probably one of the most important things when it comes to just aiming and just controller settings. And depending on the controller that you have, obviously, is very important. So as you can see right here, we have the test stick dead zone that you can obviously test your dead zone, which I'm about to explain in a second, but I play on left stick minimum. And basically what the left stick minimum and the right stick minimum means is the minimum amount of force or pressure on your stick that actually activates, like, you know, the response of the controller. As you can see that I have it at 0, but if I were to go all the way over here and just put it to 20 really quickly, which I think might be the default, I'm not too sure. I think 20 is the default though, but regardless, this red circle right around the left stick right here means that you would have to push your stick past this point to actually make it activate. So if we click the test stick dead zone, and you can see that when I'm touching my left stick, it's actually starting to move, and the only way it's going to activate is until I actually push past that pressure point, and now it's actually going to start activating, which means it's just going to be a little bit less responsive. So most people, especially when it comes to movement in Warzone, when you're playing on auto tactical sprint, is you want to put the left stick minimum basically as low as you can go until you're not moving on your own. Of course, sometimes controllers will have worse dead zones than others. So depending on your controller, anywhere from 0 to 5 is a pretty good recommendation. Sometimes you have to up it a little bit more. And if you kind of get higher than 10, you probably need a new controller. But regardless of that, we're going to go over here to the left stick max. And this is also something very similar. So you can see here that I have it at 65, and you can't really see because they made it a red background. I don't know why they did this, but this red line right there where the tip of the arrow is pointing is the maximum of my left stick max. So what that means, if I was trying to get my character to move forward as fast as possible to hit the maximum amount of speed or the maximum amount of pressure that you can hit, it would have to reach to that red line instead of all the way out here. So you can see this red line, if I put it all the way to 100, it's all the way out at the very end. So basically that means you would have to put your stick all the way forward to get that full effect of the left stick max. And when you're obviously playing on auto tactical sprint and you're working on your movement in Warzone, is a very movement heavy game, you kind of want to have the most responsive with the minimum and the fastest way to obviously that maximum as you can get. The lower you get though, you have to be careful because again, some controllers cannot handle it. 65 is kind of pushing it. I would recommend 75 or 85. It's still just a little bit better than 100, but at the end of the day, it's really not that crazy if you do play at 100. This is just probably the most optimized version of your controller that you can get. A lot of pro players as well in Warzone and in the CDL also play with these settings, obviously as tuned up as they possibly can for the most response. So that is what those left stick minimum and left stick maximums kind of mean. And it's the same exact thing for the right stick. Right stick, I play on 6. I can definitely go way lower with my controller, but personally, I just like the way it feels on 6. I've always played on 6. Celium plays on 6, and he is one of the best aimers in the CDL specifically. A lot of people do play on 0, 1, 2, 3. It kind of just depends on really what you want your responsiveness on your right stick to be, and depending on your controller, of course. But when you are testing this, the one thing I will say is every time I give advice on this channel, I'm showing you what I'm using, but at the same time, if I was using 0, I have seen some creators like recommend 0, 1, or 2, or 3. Sometimes that's just a little bit too responsive for the casual player who only plays a few hours a week, right? So that actually might not be for you too, where 6, 7, or 8 might not be a bad thing to just test out and see if you like it. It's not all exact settings of what your favorite content creator or streamer or just someone that is recommending settings to you gives you, as much as it is personal preference, and I'm just giving you like kind of what I'm doing and also explaining it. So 6 is my perfect like medium for me. I've played on lower, I've played on higher, but I do think I just play the best when I am on 6 with this controller specifically. If I get a new one, I'm obviously gonna have to probably change it up. But either way, that's what I rock. I don't touch the right stick maximum because you do not want to mess with that when it comes to the aiming stick when you're obviously tracking people with the right stick and all that. And then left trigger 0, right trigger 0, because I want the most response as when I want to aim in and shoot as possible. So that is my controller settings. That is the dead zone settings for Rebirth Island. And now let's move over to the aiming settings. I play on 6, vertical sensitivity and horizontal. That is almost what every single CDL professional player uses. A lot of players that are really good at Warzone also play around 6.6, 7.7, 5.5, or 8.8, like in that kind of area. Again, test it and see what works out best for you. You can play on higher sensitivities too and get away with it. There's not one way or the other that you would absolutely just like turn into a beast with. But I'll say one thing, this is probably the most that I would recommend, that if I was recommending anyone a sensitivity to play, it would be 6.6 or 5.5 if you just play a few hours a week. Pretty easy to control, but you can still keep up. So that's what I like to play on. Another thing I might try out this season is going back to what I started this game out with in some of the older Warzones, is using a higher max sensitivity, like a 9.6. And the reason why the horizontal is higher than the vertical is because a lot of the times when you're playing Call of Duty, it's boots on the ground. So you're swiping left and right, and you're tracking left and right. In the air, you're tracking left and right, where there's not a lot of vertical, like, you know, jetpacks or anything going on. And sometimes being able to swipe left and right is just nice when someone slides on you, but you don't get the full effect of playing on 9.9 with the vertical too. So it's kind of sometimes just nice to have like the difference of the vertical kind of keeping you in a straight line while you're swiping on a higher sensitivity. Celium specifically plays on 8.6 or 9.6 all the time. And again, I use him because he's one of the best aimers in the CDL a lot of the times too, who plays on something just a little bit different than the rest. So you could try it out and let me know what you guys think. But for now, I'm on 6.6. I might try 9.6 out again. If you catch a live stream, just ask me and I'll probably let you know what I'm testing out. And then ADS multiplier, I play on 1. If 6.6 is a little bit too fast, but you want to kind of play from your hip and still be able to keep up, and then when you aim in, you want to lock on a little bit, try 0.9, try 0.8. It can't hurt. And again, a lot of this is preference. 6.6, 0.8 is something that some of the best players in the world play on too. So try that. Let me know what you guys think, and hopefully that helps you kind of get more kills in Rebirth Island. And then continuously moving on here, I don't mess with any of the sensitivity multipliers when it comes to anything. I just want to pick up every gun and aim in the same exact way that it would when I'm using my obviously primary loadout. I don't touch the axis. The tactical stance, the same exact thing. I keep it the same. I play on dynamic response curve. Most pros play on dynamic. I know there's some people that like to try and mess around with Lydia. Some people like standard. Honestly, I think dynamic is the most advantageous for aiming, but standard is nice too. If you are really just playing a couple hours a week and you don't want to have the snappy feeling of dynamic. But again, I love dynamic. I do think this is the best one that you can use. I have an aiming guide on why it is the best, and I've explained it pretty in depth too if you want to check it out on the channel. But yeah, we're on dynamic there, and then everything else here is pretty normal. I play on target aim assist on. That's very important. And then aim assist type, I actually have just switched to default. I used to play on Black Ops. I can't tell too much of a difference, to be honest with you, but I just switched to the default one day and had a really good day. So now I play on aim assist on default. There is a very slight difference, but again, most people do play on default. Some play on Black Ops. Either way, just make sure you test it out and see what you're doing. ADS aim assist, very important. And then the rest of this is just normal. I have motion sensor behavior off. And then going over to the gameplay, this is where some of these settings can get important for you. You got automatic tactical sprint. I do think in Warzone specifically, this is very important just because Warzone is very movement based. The map is very big. Even Rebirth Island, you're doing a lot of running around and a lot of sprinting, and a lot of gunfights are movement based in Rebirth Island on staircases in close range. And being able to get your automatic tactical sprint off as fast as possible instead of playing on single tap or double tap is just usually going to be more advantageous for you to hit a slide cancel on someone or use your movement to get away. And yeah, so I like having ATS on when I play Warzone. When I play CDL ranked, it's a little bit different, but we have a whole separate channel for that. So yeah, ATS, I definitely recommend trying to get used to it if you don't play on it already. If you can't, then what I would do is turn this off and go down to the tactical sprint behavior and put this on single tap to run. So basically all that means is when you are obviously just walking forward, if you want to get into that tactical sprint, you just have to click that left stick in once instead of double tap, which means you would have to click it in twice, which just makes it really hard to finesse. And I wouldn't recommend anyone playing on that if you do not have to. So that's the other way you can have this set up, but I have ATS on. I have it like that. And then moving forward, I have slide, maintain, sprint off just because I play on ATS too. Personally, I just think it feels way more fluid that way. I've tested both, and I just like when the slide, maintain, sprint is off right now, but I have also seen people play with it on. Again, I would kind of test that and see what you like more. I just think when you have automatic sprint on or automatic tactical sprint on, I feel like you kind of maintain that momentum with auto tac sprint. But regardless, let me know what you guys think about that in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, of course. And then going all the way down here, this is just the rest of the stuff. I have a lot of this stuff turned off. And then the slide dive behavior was added in Warzone Season 2, I want to say, the beginning of Season 2. And slide only and dive only basically give you no delay when you want to slide or dive. I think sliding is way more important than diving, so I play it on slide only. Diving is important in Warzone at a very high level, in my opinion, especially if you like to play Vandal and you want to do the dive to parachute to get a little bit more of a boost on some of your movement. If you are someone who is super sweaty watching this video and just looking for more ways to just get a little bit better, I do recommend mastering hybrid, but at the same time, I've just been a little bit too lazy myself to master hybrid just as of late. I only play a couple hours a day right now just because I've been coaching the CDL and all that. So slide only is just a little bit easier for me right now. If I was playing at a very high level, I would probably try and get used to hybrid. So I recommend trying to do that if you can and if you feel like you can do that. But at the same time, a lot of people also just play slide only and are very, very good and get away with it. I like slide only. I think it's just the easiest. It takes away that delay. You should definitely not be playing on tap to slide or tap to dive ever. That just adds a delay to whether or not you want to tap the slide or hold to do that. Don't do that. It's just going to make your movement a lot more clunky, and I do not recommend that to anyone. So if you're going to choose one, I would choose sliding over diving or hybrid. And then moving over, I have the rest of these settings right here. None of this is too crazy if I remember correctly. Just going to run through these guys so you guys can kind of just take down what you're seeing. All this stuff is obviously pretty standard. Armor plate behavior, make sure you have apply all, and then interact and reload. I have prioritize interact, just so when you are looting, it is quicker to loot, and then you could hold your square button to reload, which is just a little bit better for Warzone overall with the looting system and everything that you're trying to do. And then you could just keep kind of going down here if you want to just take a look at the rest of these settings, but this is what I've been playing on for a while. And same thing in Rebirth. Now, moving over to the graphics, this is for PC. These are my PC graphics right here. I play on a 1440p monitor, 4090, 240 hertz. So this is what I'm rocking there. That's all going to be dependent on what you obviously have with your system and all that stuff. On plus boost. And then the rest of this stuff is off and just pretty, standard stuff. Nothing like here is going to be too crazy. But just in case you guys want to make sure you have your graphics settings at the absolute best that you can probably have, I recommend doing most of this. Then moving over to quality, same thing, 100 resolution. I have the dynamic resolution off, upscale and sharpening. I always have it on fidelity cast and I have it at 90. It just makes the game look a little bit sharper and just easier to see. I definitely think it's very, very recommended to be playing on that if you can. And then the VRAM scale target, I've had at 70, and then everything else, again, off. And then a lot of this right here is where it can definitely be a little bit different depending on your PC. If you don't have a good PC and you want the max FPS, you could turn a lot of this stuff low, off, low, like turn everything as like at the lowest setting possible to try and get your max FPS. But sometimes your game's just going to look like crap. And with these specific settings that I have, I get a lot of FPS. I do have a very good PC, but even with my other PC that I had before, I still got a good amount of FPS and the game still looked pretty good in my opinion. So this is what I've just been kind of rocking just for that sake. Again, normal, you could put those low if you want, but that's obviously a disclaimer just for when you're copying these settings. Again, shader quality, you can have it medium or high if you really want to make the game look better. Personally though, I do think low just doesn't really matter and it helps your FPS a lot when it's on low. Bullet impacts I do think are important for controlling recoil. You can actually see your actual recoil control pattern of what you need to do, so I do keep that on. And then everything else here is off, low, and then here you can see the rest of these settings right here. Now, moving over to the field of view, you've probably seen a bunch of short forms or TikToks from me with recommended settings, and a lot of those settings are always going to be recommended to you guys of what I think you should play on, depending on what you're kind of going for, whether it's visual recoil in general, and all that stuff. If I played only Warzone, guys, I would probably play 120 FOV, just because I do love 120 FOV. I love the visual recoil is at its minimum when you do have it on a higher FOV, and I just think it feels nice when you're playing on 120 on Warzone. But I'm going for a challenge this season in Warzone and also in the CDL ranked and multiplayer ranked, and a lot of multiplayer pros play on 105 to 100 FOV. So I put my FOV from 120 down to 110 just because I'm kind of going back and forth between the highest rank in the world of iridescent in multiplayer ranked and also iridescent in Warzone ranked, which I'm trying to do for like obviously the goal of Warzone season 3. So I'm gonna be playing in the middle just so I can switch back and forth and it's not so jarring for myself and kind of just see if I can get used to it. So that's my ideology behind the FOV of 110. 110 is also good if you just can't handle 120. It's just a little bit too much of a fishbowl for you and you can't see. 110 is probably your happy medium, but again, I would recommend trying 120 if you can get used to that with the recoil control and all that stuff. I do think it's just nice to have the visual recoil control eliminated as much as possible. Give a try of what you want. I would recommend 120, 118 if you think the 120 myth with aim assist is still a thing, or again, 110, 105, and I wouldn't go any lower than that in Warzone specifically. So I'm playing on 110, but I recommend 120 for the exact reasons I just explained. ADS field of view affected, of course, that's going to be really good for the visual recoil. You should not be playing on independent, especially if your field of view is higher than like 100. I'm going to be completely honest. It's going to have a lot of visual recoil. It's going to be a lot weirder than you would think, and affected is just overall better, I would say, by 99% of the player base that uses it. If there are people that are sweaty and good and they use independent, it's because they're really talented and again, they can get away with it. So it's still going to be preference at the end of the day, but I do think the general recommendation for you guys that are watching this video is affected. Weapon field of view wide, and then third person doesn't really matter, and then the rest of this stuff is off, and then first person camera movement, turn this to 50. Please never have this at 100. It is very, very annoying to play with that at 100, and a lot of people do miss this setting. And then here for the audio, I just got my audio tuned for the first time in this Warzone 3 era, so I'm trying the Art is War tuning. I would recommend going to Art is War's channel for the best PC audio tuning that you could possibly get, and link up with him if you guys kind of want to go deep into that. But right now I'm playing on the Art is War tuning with home theater. And then, of course, the master volume and all this stuff is that. I would recommend turning the gameplay music volume off and the cinematic music volume off as well. It is very important to have those two off. Everything else you can kind of get away with, like the 50, effects 100, and then master game volume at 100. And then the rest of this stuff doesn't really matter, of course, depending on what your microphone settings are. you're pretty much good. I do have the reduced sound off here. And then everything else is normal. Hit marker effects is Modern Warfare. You could play on kind of whatever you want for that, but that's what I'm rocking. So the last and final thing I'll show you guys is the interface settings. A big thing for this is the color customization is huge. Not these colors as much as it's the color filters. I play on color filter 2, and then I play on the color filter target at both. And then I play at the color intensity at 100, 100. It just brings a little bit more vibrance to the game. It's just nice to have, and I recommend everyone playing on these settings when it comes to colors, just to make the game a little bit more vibrant and just colorful. And I think that's kind of an important thing, honestly, weirdly, as weird as that sounds. I feel like I could just see more stuff. Not to a crazy degree, but it just helps a little. And then the other thing I think I've left out in one of my settings videos before that I'm kind of upset with myself is you see this thing right here on your screen. It's your mini map. It is so important. The most important thing ever. I know a lot of people think that all streamers look to their left because they're cheating. They're looking at their minimap. This is the best source of information you can ever get. Red dots appear when people shoot. You can see the rotations. You can see the gas line. You can see how much time is left. There's so much stuff that your minimap is going to be giving you with your teammates, where your teammates are pushing, where the teammates are taking the fight. And in order to see that minimap at best possible, I have the HUD bounds brought all the way in. So the minimap is going to be right here instead of up here to the left. So I have to kind of reach out all the way. I have a 27-inch monitor, so I have to look all the way up to the left. It's just a little bit less of a left look to look at my mini map and get the information that I need. So I have it brought all the way in. I know sometimes that makes the precision airstrike notification a little bit weird, so you can kind of play with it, but bring this in as much as possible to the point that it does not annoy you with some of the other stuff in the kill feed and things like that. I think my bounty covers my kill feed sometimes, and that annoys some people on my stream. But again, the mini map is the most important thing in Call of Duty ever, especially in a team game, even in solos for where people are around you. So definitely rock that. The HUD bounds are important. I play on a square minimap shape because it is just a bigger minimap. And then rotation, personally, I like it rotating with me so I can actually see what I'm looking at. And then everything else is pretty normal. Static crosshairs. The center dot's going to be on. And then, yeah, that's where we're at. So that's what we got for everything when it comes to all these settings on Rebirth. Hopefully this video helped you guys out. Get ready for Rebirth Island in Warzone 3. I hope you guys have a great time playing the mode. I hope you guys have a great time playing ranked and you get all the ranks that you're trying to go for if that's what you're doing. And if these settings videos helped you, make sure you drop a like, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.